first. Congresswomen Ilhan Omar, Democrat of Minnesota, and Rashida Tlaib, Democrat of Michigan, wanted to visit the Palestinian areas of the West Bank, and at first Israel said, yeah, you can come. Then they said, no, you can't. And Donald Trump has been accused of pushing out there, oh, if you allow them to come, you're going to look weak, Israel. Now he's trying to walk it back. I wasn't involved. Yeah. I have this update. This is from Al Jazeera. U.S. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib has said that she will no longer visit the occupied West Bank under the oppressive conditions required by the Israeli government, who hours earlier said that they would allow her entry on humanitarian grounds. Tlaib, who is of Palestinian origin, tweeted her decision on Friday, a day after the Israeli government barred her and fellow Congresswoman Ilhan Omar from entering over their support of a boycott movement seeking to pressure Israel to end its race abuses against Palestinians. Under a controversial Israeli law, backers of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement can be denied entry to Israel. Following the move to bar the two Muslim congresswomen, Israel's Interior Minister Aryeh Deri said that he had decided to allow Tlaib to make a humanitarian visit to her grandmother in the West Bank, but only after the legislator had sent him a written pledge to respect conditions imposed by Israel. Tlaib had, quote, promised not to promote the cause of the boycott of Israel during her stay, end of quote, in the letter to Deri sent overnight, the ministry said in a statement. But in the tweet on Friday, Tlaib said her grandmother would not want her to visit on the conditions. Quote, silencing me and treating me like a criminal is not what she wants for me. It would kill a piece of me. I have decided that visiting my grandmother under these oppressive conditions stands against everything I believe in, fighting against racism, oppression, and injustice. End of quote. So yeah, her grandmother lives in the Palestinian West Bank, and Israel is saying, oh no, you can't come in because you've been critical of Israel in the past. Which
then we can't give you $168 billion worth of aid. That's what Bernie said. Mm-hmm. Bernie said, okay, Israel, you won't let them in? Then that's it. No more money. Yep. Bernie Sanders, Huffington Post.
Yep. Bernie has called this a travesty, so has Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Ban our lawmakers, don't take our money.
Yep, exactly. Israel's widely condemned decision to bar the legislator's trip came after Donald Trump, a close ally of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, attacked Tlaib and Omar, alleging that they, quote, hate Israel and all Jewish people, and there is nothing that can be said or done to change their minds, end of quote. Trump also wrote on Twitter that it would show great weakness for Israel to allow them in. No. Trump called them an embarrassment. You know who the embarrassment is? It's Donald Trump. This orange-skinned dirtbag. Yes, I'm calling him a dirtbag, folks. I've called him worse on this show. He's the embarrassment. Every time he opens that pig anus between his nose and his chin and spews his verbal diarrhea, that's an embarrassment to this country.
Would you hold back, Darren? Would you just
hold back? You ought to hear what Jim Cornette says about him in his podcast weekly.
Darren, here's the thing. This was right after he had said and asked his advisors if he could buy Greenland. And I didn't connect the dots. Speaking of connecting dots, I didn't connect the islands. I mean, they lose Epstein's island, so Trump wants to buy Greenland. It's on the Facebook, folks, and I don't doubt it. Here's the thing.
It was on the news this morning.
Yeah, you can laugh, you can be entertained, but the bottom line is that this idiot is going to take us down the sinkhole while you're laughing.
Yeah, and let's talk about that sinkhole. The Dow Jones plummeted 800 points in one day. I believe it was Wednesday?
I don't know. I saw an article that was written by Sanucci, one of his Italian ex-fired members of his cabinet. Or
yeah, Scaramucci probably.
Something like that. Who knows? There's been so many of them. He said this, and I think it's chilling. Donald Trump, in true sociopathic fashion, turns on everybody. Mm-hmm. They turn on everybody, And that means someday he will, this is what he said, he will turn on America. If he had to prove a point by going to war with Iran or launch missiles towards Iran or whatever it is, this is a personal thing with him. He won't take anybody crossing him. He would jeopardize the entire nation to prove himself right. He turns on everyone. He has turned on everyone.
Yeah.
This is joy he got when he would say fire. You saw it and say, "You're fired. You're fired. You're fired."
Yep. We've got this. This is from our friends over at Democracy Now! On Wall Street, the stock market took its largest single-day loss since October, with the Dow Jones dropping 800 points, or more than 3%, amid mounting fears that a recession may be around the corner. The drop in share prices came as Germany announced its economy contracted during the last quarter, and as news emerged of a key economic indicator known as an inverted yield curve that has preceded the last 7 U.S. recessions. It's coming, folks. Let me just tell you, somebody that I know was at a bar just Wednesday night. He ran out to his car for a minute. He set his iPhone down. He had an iPhone 10. Set it on the bar. The bar has cameras in it. He came back. It's gone. I'm telling you, people are desperate these days. Yep. You need to keep an eye on your personal possessions. You need to lock your doors. You need to lock your car doors. We've had auto break-ins around my house. A ton of them. People are desperate. If they see a dollar bill sitting in the console of your vehicle, they'll smash the window to get it.
Yeah, it's true. Even quarters.
Yeah. For change. This is how desperate people are. And you know why people are desperate? It's because the fat cat oligarchs that sit on top of the pile of money don't give a damn about you. Like George Carlin said, it's a big club and you ain't in it. You better understand that, folks.
I think that the threat of collapse isn't just because of Donald J. Trump.
You always keep saying, going back to Bush.
There's got to be a deep reason for that. But the thing is, Darren, is that we can see this cyclically across American history. They got it down to what, every 7-8 years? I mean, it's inevitable. Mm-hmm. The system has to purge itself, let alone what Trump has done in the absolute form of these horrendous tax cuts. We're at a higher debt than we've ever been before.
Yeah.
This may be the end of the cycle, but there has been a cycle nonetheless. We live in a capitalistic devouring machine, and when it has to balance itself, because it does so at the expense of your retirement plan, of my retirement plan, the tax cuts that were given by Reagan were nothing, and it put us in this spiral. Remember, he said, listen, you got a Social Security check, I'm going to tax it. Mm-hmm. I want to tax your Social Security check. And the progressives and the Democrats were snoring so loud, they didn't get what the hell he meant. And the first time in history, he was going to tax the Social Security while cutting the tax for his 1% buddies.
And you know where
Nobody said, where's this going to lead us?
And you know where he got that idea from? From Michigan Governor Rick Snyder, who taxed seniors' pensions in this state while cutting the corporate tax rate to 0.
Yeah. Again, the United States has no memory. And that brought in what was called neoliberalism, and it brought in the austerity that you mentioned is so bad people are breaking into cars for 50 cents.
Yeah.
The Republicans, I mean, you only have to get your thumb and put it in if you don't believe me.
Yeah.
He wrote an IOU to the Social Security. I think the fund is down in Kentucky or someplace.
Probably down in Fort Knox.
He wrote a physical piece of paper that said, we owe you X amount of money, and then just took it the hell out. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The hypocrisy is unbelievable. We're talking about gun violence this week. Do you know that every single Republican in the country is calling our gun crisis a mental health crisis, right? The reason we had this spike in violence is because it's a mental health crisis.
Trump started that Thursday night at a rally somewhere. I forget where it was.
Folks, can you connect this dot? At the same time, they're suing to remove mental health coverage from the Affordable Care Act. I mean, this kind of hypocrisy, this kind of contradiction Does it escape the American notice? Do you know how many people I argue with, friends and so forth? You talked about being at the bar. One of them said just this week, well, I don't really like his sexual comments, but he's done so many good things for Americans. That this is a person who graduated from school with me. What? What good things has he done?
Yeah.
What? I ask you, please.
I wish I knew, because I don't know any. It's unbelievable. And
sexist and misogynist, and going after the immigrants with threats that some idiot like the guy that choked a 13-year-old said he did it because that's what he thought Trump wanted him to do.
You know what? I want to get to that story. I'll get to that a little bit later.
Sure.
But since we've been talking about Omar and Rashida Tlaib, I want to get to this. This is Michael Harriot writing an opinion piece for The Root. This just came about earlier this week as well. Let me read this here. Here's the essence of white supremacy. Despite the pronouncements of those who proudly declare their bodies free of a racist bone, white supremacy is not the same as racism. Actions and their results are what determine whether or not something is racist, not belief or intent. Nor is white supremacy defined by tiki torch marches or moonlit lawn cross burnings. That is racial terrorism, which is a byproduct of racism. And it has nothing to do with hate. White supremacy is bigger than that. It is an institution. It is systematic and entrenched. While it manifests itself in everything from education to the criminal justice system, white supremacy is largely invisible. But one can see the odious, distasteful effects of white supremacy simply by examining school funding disparities, the wealth gap, and sentencing inequality.
Yep.
Or in a pinch, you can just browse the Twitter account of New York Times Deputy Washington Editor Jonathan Weisman. Shortly after Tuesday's Democratic debates, those were the ones that were held July 31st and August 1st, I believe, world-class sore loser and former Missouri Senator Claire McCaskill, who blamed her Senate seat loss on the Democratic Party's failure to attract rural voters, pronounced, "White people!" Explained the ideological divide between progressives like Elizabeth Warren and moderates like those other store-brand white folks whose names I'm not inclined to look up. I know there was a Tim, a John, and an Amy. McCaskill, conveniently forgetting about the $25 billion in welfare Trump has dished out, mostly to Midwest farmers, McCaskill lied. Quote, "Free stuff from the government does not play well in the Midwest." End of quote. And I'm going to stop there real quick, because I've read people that claim to be Democrats that say, "Oh, I'm not going to vote for Bernie Sanders because I don't want a socialist." Well, I don't want socialism in this country. Let me tell you what. You've already got socialism in this country. Your police department, your fire department,
your libraries,
your water, your sewer, your libraries, your highways.
Supposedly your schools.
Yeah, that's being taken away. Guess what that is? That's all socialism. No, you don't care about socialism until your house burns down, and then you call the fire department. Tell you what, if you ain't socialism that much, when your house catches fire, let the thing burn.
Yeah, you got to privatize Army now, too.
Yeah. And hey, the fire department, it used to be in the 1800s, private fire departments. If your house was burning and you had a contract with ABC Fire Protection, they would come out. But if XYZ Fire Protection happened to be driving by and saw your house was on fire, you didn't have a contract with them, they let it burn. That is the history of this country, and people forget it.
And the antithesis of socialism is privatization, which I call profitization.
Mm-hmm.
I got a call. I told Darren, a guy wanted to know where I was at December 1st, 1969. I said, well, I was sitting in a room watching the draft numbers, and I got a low one. And a friend of mine said, hey, jump on my leg, break my leg. I don't want to go. See, in those days, there was a public army.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, it was Nixon. Somebody figured out, hell, we'll just privatize it.
Yeah.
The Secretary of Defense now is a guy named Eric Prince from 20 miles over here from Christian School in Holland. Don't think he isn't. And if you don't think he is, go and find out how much money's gone to privatized armaments and mercenaries. Just try, get it from the Pentagon.
Oh, yeah.
Then we'll give it to you.
Let me continue this here. Democratic strategist Waleed Shahidi, who is not a member of a tribe called Quest, responded to McCaskill on Twitter by pointing out that Representative Ilhan Omar, Democrat Minnesota, and Representative Rashida Tlaib, Democrat of Michigan, were progressives who were sent to Congress by Midwest voters. On Wednesday, Weisman, a white man, White explained that the two congresswomen were not really true Midwesterners.